Did you know that there is an ancient version of the Bible that reveals a completely different story of creation? A version where Eve wasn't created from Adam's rib, but from the very divine light of the Creator itself. Imagine, the first humans were not simply shaped from dust or bones, but from sacred, celestial elements. Earth gathered from the four corners of the universe, breathing life into a being that contained the wisdom of the angels. And in this version of the story, the Garden of Eden was not just a garden, but a divine space where heaven and earth met, where the air itself carried eternal life. Why have we never heard this before? What is hidden within these sacred texts that has been deliberately kept from us for centuries? Could the Ethiopian Bible, with its deep wisdom and ancient secrets, be the key to unlocking the true story of humanity's origin? And if so, how does this knowledge change everything we've been taught? In this video, we will dive into the truth behind these ancient revelations and explore how the Ethiopian Bible offers a profound, new perspective on the creation of Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, and the divine wisdom lost to humanity. You'll discover why Eve's creation from light challenges everything we thought we knew about gender equality, and why the garden wasn't just a place of paradise, but a sacred meeting ground between the divine and humanity. Together, we will uncover how these revelations not only shed new light on ancient history, but also offer profound lessons that can heal and guide us in the modern world. As you listen, reflect on the deeper implications of this knowledge, how it reshapes our understanding of our origins, our relationship to the Creator, and the divine spark within us all. And if this discovery resonates with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments, like, and subscribe so we can continue this journey together. Let's explore the divine light buried in the pages of the Ethiopian Bible and see how these ancient truths can illuminate our lives today. In the ancient text of the Ethiopian Bible, the story of Adam's creation is not the simple tale we are accustomed to. It is a narrative infused with divine intention and cosmic balance. Adam was not formed from just ordinary dust, but from sacred earth gathered from the four corners of the universe. This earth, moistened by the dew of heaven and purified by the light of the stars, was meticulously gathered by angels sent to the east, west, north, and south. Each corner of the world contributed a special portion of earth that would form the first human. Adam's creation was not just a physical act, but a cosmic one, an alignment of the universe itself, pulling together the elements that would make up the first man. What does this tell us about the nature of humanity? From the moment of Adam's creation, we see that human beings are not just beings of this world. We are beings of the universe, of divine design. We are meant to embody balance, harmony, and wisdom, drawing from the very elements of the world. The earth from the four corners symbolizes the interconnectedness of all things. Just as the four corners of the earth meet, so too do we as humans meet the divine within us. We are made of the same elements that make up the stars and the oceans, the mountains and the skies. The divine wisdom within us is not separate from the world, but a part of it. This divine creation shows us the sacredness within each of us. We are more than just physical beings. We are reflections of the Creator's divine light. Our bodies, our souls, our spirits are composed of the same sacred elements that make up the universe. There is a profound power in this understanding, for it reveals that we are deeply connected to the divine and the natural world. The story of Adam's creation speaks to our inherent worth and potential. We are not here by accident, we are here by divine design. But there is another element of Adam's creation that is even more profound. When Adam's form was complete, the Creator did not simply breathe ordinary life into him. Instead, the Creator placed within Adam a divine spark, a piece of his own spirit. This spark shone in Adam's eyes, making them as clear as crystal. His vision was not limited to the physical world, but was divinely enhanced. With this divine light, Adam could see the invisible, understand the deep truths of creation, and communicate with the angels themselves. His eyes were not just the eyes of a human being, they were the eyes of one who could perceive the divine. This divine spark in Adam symbolizes the potential we all have within us. Just as Adam was created with the ability to see beyond the ordinary, we too carry within us the ability to perceive the divine. We have the capacity for wisdom, clarity, and understanding if we allow ourselves to reconnect with the divine light within. This spark is not something we have to seek outside of ourselves. It is already inside us, waiting to be awakened. The Ethiopian Bible continues to reveal something extraordinary about Adam's creation. In the Book of Kings, it is written that Adam was given the language of the angels. This wasn't just a spoken language, but a sacred language that allowed Adam to understand the deeper secrets of the universe. Adam was able to name all things according to their true nature, not just as they appeared on the surface, but as they were at their core. This ability to understand the true essence of things, to communicate with all of creation, shows the depth of Adam's divine connection. He was not merely an inhabitant of earth, he was a guardian of divine wisdom, given the task of understanding and stewarding the world around him. This ability to name and understand creation brings us to a profound lesson, the power of words and understanding. Just as Adam was able to speak the divine language and understand the true nature of things, we too are called to seek this understanding. We are invited to see beyond the surface, to understand not just what things are, but what they mean. The words we speak, the actions we take, have the power to shape the world around us. When we align ourselves with the divine wisdom within, we too can understand and create in harmony with the universe. But the story of Adam's creation does not stop here. There is one more key figure in this divine narrative, Eve. The creation of Eve is equally as profound, for in the Ethiopian Bible, Eve's creation is not from Adam's rib, but from the divine light itself. The Creator took the purest light from the morning stars and crystallized it into Eve. Her body radiated with a gentle light, like the moon, and her soul contained the wisdom of the angels. Eve was not merely created as a companion to Adam, but as an independent being, full of divine light and wisdom in her own right. Eve's creation from divine light speaks volumes about the nature of femininity and the equality between men and women. In the Ethiopian Bible, Eve is not seen as secondary to Adam, as often depicted in other traditions. Instead, she is shown as a being of divine origin, independent, powerful, and equal in her spiritual essence. This understanding challenges the traditional view of gender roles and affirms the equal worth of men and women in the eyes of the Creator. Both Adam and Eve were created with divine light, both were given the same potential for wisdom, and both were entrusted with the stewardship of creation. The story of Adam and Eve's creation reveals a profound truth. We are all created in the image of the Creator, imbued with divine potential. The divine light that was placed within Adam and Eve is the same light that resides within us all. Just as Adam was given the language of the angels, we too are invited to reclaim our divine connection and understanding. The divine spark is not something that was lost with the fall, but something that is always within us, waiting to be reawakened. There is also a lesson in the way Adam and Eve were created. Our true nature is not separate from the divine. Adam was made from the sacred earth, and Eve was made from the divine light. Together, they reflect the union of the physical and the spiritual, the earthly and the heavenly. This reminds us that we too are a union of these elements. We are not just physical beings, but spiritual beings with a divine purpose. When we reconnect with our true essence, we align ourselves with the divine, and we live in harmony with the Creator's plan. The creation of Adam and Eve, as described in the Ethiopian Bible, offers us a vision of what we can become when we reconnect with the divine wisdom and light within us. It reminds us that we are not merely part of the natural world, but that we are divine beings, created with a higher purpose. We are meant to live with clarity, wisdom, and understanding, to communicate with creation and with the Creator, and to walk in harmony with the world around us. This story calls us to reclaim our divine potential and to live in alignment with the higher wisdom that is always available to us. And as we move forward, let us ask ourselves, how can we, like Adam and Eve, begin to see the world through the divine lens? How can we reclaim the wisdom, clarity, and understanding that are our birthright? The journey to rediscovering our true nature is not an easy one, but it is one worth taking. The divine light is within us all, waiting to be awakened, waiting to lead us back to the true essence of who we are. The Garden of Eden, as described in the Ethiopian Bible, is far more than just the simple paradise many of us envision from Genesis. It is a sacred space, a divine meeting point where heaven and earth intertwined. This garden was not just a physical location, but a spiritual sanctuary, a place where the divine presence was felt in every tree, every river, and every breath of air. The Ethiopian Bible presents the garden as a space charged with celestial energy, a place where life was not only abundant, but eternally infused with divine light. The rivers flowing through Eden were not mere streams of water. They were rivers of divine light, each carrying with it a sacred essence that nourished and elevated everything it touched. In the Book of Kings, the garden is described not just as an earthly paradise, but as a location on a high mountain where the material world met the spiritual realm. This description indicates that the garden was a sacred space where Adam and Eve could experience a direct connection with the Creator. It was a place of purity, radiating with divine energy, where the laws of nature were in perfect alignment with the divine will. The air itself carried the essence of eternal life, and with every breath, Adam and Eve were filled with wisdom, clarity, and understanding of the divine mysteries of the universe. Their senses were not limited to the physical world, but were heightened by the presence of the Creator. The garden was, in essence, a reflection of the balance between the material and spiritual worlds, a place where the divine could be experienced intimately and directly. In this sacred space, everything was designed to support spiritual growth. The trees were not just beautiful to behold, but served as symbols of divine truth and life itself. The Ethiopian Bible speaks of 3 sacred trees in the garden: the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, and the tree of light. These trees were not just sources of physical nourishment, but of spiritual significance. The tree of life granted immortality, allowing Adam and Eve to partake in eternal life. The tree of knowledge, on the other hand, was a tree of understanding and wisdom, a source of divine knowledge that would allow Adam and Eve to comprehend the deep truths of the universe. However, it was the tree of light that was most profound. This tree was the source of all divine energy, the embodiment of the Creator's light, and it was through this tree that the divine energy flowed into all things in the garden. It is important to note that Adam and Eve were allowed to eat from the tree of life and the tree of light, but they were forbidden from eating from the tree of knowledge until they had achieved spiritual maturity. This divine prohibition was not arbitrary, it was a guiding principle for spiritual growth. The Creator wanted them to grow in wisdom, to understand the divine order of the universe, and to reach a level of spiritual maturity before they were entrusted with the full knowledge of the universe. This reflects a deep truth. Spiritual wisdom and knowledge are not given freely. They must be earned, cultivated through patience, understanding, and spiritual growth. Just as Adam and Eve were given time to mature in the garden, so too must we take the time to grow in wisdom and understanding before we can fully embrace the divine knowledge that is available to us. The prohibition to eat from the tree of knowledge also teaches us an essential lesson about human nature. The pursuit of wisdom must be done in alignment with the divine order. Too often we seek knowledge without considering the spiritual responsibility that comes with it. We live in a world where knowledge is often pursued for personal gain or control, rather than for the greater good of all creation. The tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden serves as a reminder that knowledge, when sought before we are spiritually prepared to understand its true nature, can lead to consequences. In the case of Adam and Eve, their desire for knowledge led to their fall, as they sought to gain understanding outside the guidance of divine wisdom. This act of disobedience was not just about eating forbidden fruit. It was about seeking control over their own destiny outside the framework of divine guidance. It was an assertion of free will over divine order. The fall of Adam and Eve teaches us a profound lesson, that knowledge and wisdom are not just intellectual pursuits, they are spiritual practices. To truly understand the divine order of the universe, we must first align ourselves with the Creator's will. This alignment is not a passive act. It requires conscious effort, discipline, and humility. It is through our willingness to walk in the light of the divine that we can come to understand the deeper truths of the universe. Knowledge without wisdom leads to confusion, division, and a disconnect from the divine. However, wisdom in alignment with the Creator's plan brings clarity, peace, and spiritual harmony. But the story of the Garden of Eden is not solely about knowledge and wisdom. It is also about the intimate connection between humanity and the earth. The Garden of Eden was not a place for Adam and Eve to simply enjoy the beauty of nature. It was a place where they were meant to live in harmony with the earth. The Ethiopian Bible emphasizes that Adam and Eve were given the ability to communicate with all creatures in the garden. They were not to dominate or control nature, but to live in deep relationship with it, understanding its rhythms, its language, and its divine purpose. The garden was a place where Adam and Eve were meant to be stewards of the earth, guardians of its sacred beauty, and caretakers of its divine potential. This profound relationship with nature is a message that still resonates today. We live in a world where the connection between humanity and nature has often been lost, where we have forgotten our role as stewards of the earth. The Garden of Eden serves as a powerful reminder that we are not separate from nature. We are a part of it. The earth, like the garden, is a reflection of divine beauty, wisdom, and balance, and it is our responsibility to protect and nurture it. Just as Adam and Eve were entrusted with the care of the garden, so too are we entrusted with the care of the earth. In the Ethiopian Bible, the Garden of Eden represents an ideal state of balance and harmony between humanity, nature, and the divine. It is a place where all things are in their right place, where everything functions in accordance with the divine plan. The rivers of light that flowed through the garden symbolize the divine wisdom and energy that sustain all of creation. The trees, the animals, and the people in the garden were meant to live in perfect harmony, each fulfilling its purpose in the grand design of the Creator. But when Adam and Eve were cast out of the garden, this divine harmony was broken. The balance between humanity and nature, between the physical and the spiritual, was disrupted. The distance between heaven and earth began to widen, and humanity's ability to communicate with creation became clouded. The Garden of Eden, in its perfection, represents a time when humanity lived in alignment with the divine, when the connection between heaven, earth, and humanity was pure and unbroken. The fall of Adam and Eve, then, is not just the loss of a physical paradise. It is the loss of the perfect balance between humanity and the divine. It is the loss of the intimate relationship with nature, the loss of the ability to communicate with all creation, and the loss of the divine wisdom that flowed through the garden. Yet, even in this loss, there is hope. The path to redemption, to restoration, is always available. Just as the garden was once a place of harmony, so too can our lives be restored to balance when we reconnect with the divine light within us. The Garden of Eden calls us to return to the sacredness of nature, to recognize the interconnectedness of all things, and to live in harmony with the divine order. It is a call to restore the balance that was lost and to remember our true purpose as stewards of the earth and caretakers of the divine wisdom within us. Just as the garden once reflected the divine, so too can our lives reflect the beauty, wisdom, and harmony of the Creator when we align ourselves with the divine will. The garden is not lost forever. It is within us, waiting to be rediscovered. And as we reconnect with our true essence, we can bring the garden back into the world, restoring balance, harmony, and divine light to all creation. In the story of the fall, Adam and Eve's decision to eat the forbidden fruit is often seen as a simple act of disobedience. However, in the context of the Ethiopian Bible, this fall represents something far deeper. It was not just a violation of a command, it was a profound spiritual rupture, a separation from the divine essence that had once flowed freely through them. The act of eating the fruit was, in essence, the first step in humanity's journey of disconnection from the Creator, from each other, and from the true nature of creation itself. The temptation came not merely in the form of a snake, but in a being of light, a creature capable of shaping illusions and offering visions of power and knowledge. This tempter, this angelic being, was not just offering fruit, but the allure of control. He promised Eve something far more dangerous than forbidden knowledge. He promised power, autonomy, and freedom from divine authority. "You will be like gods," he said, "knowing good and evil." It wasn't about the fruit itself. It was about the desire to have control over their own destinies, to take the divine knowledge for themselves, to step outside of the guidance and the perfect order that had been set before them. This is where the deeper lesson lies. The fall was not just a violation of a rule, it was a seeking of control over one's own understanding. And it was the first moment in human history when humanity chose to define what is right and wrong, good and evil, on its own terms. Adam and Eve were created with the divine gift of wisdom, but in this moment they chose to take that wisdom for themselves rather than wait for it to unfold in harmony with the Creator's divine plan. It is the choice to act in self-will rather than divine will, a choice that has echoed through the centuries in every human act of rebellion or separation from the divine. This moment of separation was not an instantaneous loss, but a gradual erosion of the divine connection. It was not just the breaking of a commandment, it was the unraveling of the divine relationship between humanity and the Creator. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they did not immediately die physically, but their spiritual connection was severed. They began to see with different eyes clouded by shame, fear, and guilt. They were no longer able to see the divine light in the world around them, and they could no longer perceive the presence of the Creator in the way they had before. The light within them began to dim. This act of disobedience was not a moment of instant destruction, but the beginning of a long process, a journey that we still walk today. It is the process of losing touch with the divine within us, of seeking to fill the emptiness with knowledge, power, and control, rather than with connection, humility, and love. Adam and Eve were not cast out of the garden because they ate the fruit. They were cast out because they chose to separate themselves from the divine flow that had sustained them. It wasn't the eating of the fruit that led to their fall, but their choice to act outside of divine harmony. In our own lives, we often find ourselves making similar choices. We choose the path of independence, of self-will, rather than trusting in the divine wisdom and plan for our lives. We seek knowledge, but not the wisdom that comes from surrender to divine will. We seek control, but not the peace that comes from aligning with the Creator's plan. This is not to say that knowledge is wrong. On the contrary, wisdom and knowledge are divine gifts. But when we seek them outside of divine order, when we seek them for the sake of personal power, they become tools for disconnection rather than connection. One of the most profound lessons from the fall is the recognition that true wisdom and knowledge are always meant to be in service of love, compassion, and divine will. When we seek knowledge and wisdom for the sake of self-aggrandizement, when we seek to define our own truth without consideration of divine order, we move away from the light that was meant to guide us. The fall teaches us that the pursuit of wisdom, when separated from divine connection, leads not to enlightenment, but to confusion, fear, and disillusionment. In the moment of their fall, Adam and Eve became aware of something new, their nakedness. For the first time, they saw themselves as vulnerable, exposed, and flawed. They had always existed in a state of divine grace, but now, in the wake of their choice, they saw themselves as separate from the divine. Their eyes, once filled with the light of divine wisdom, were now clouded by shame. They felt the need to hide, to cover themselves, and to withdraw from the Creator's presence. The garden that had once been a place of unity became a place of separation. The lesson here is not just about sin or disobedience. It is about the loss of connection with the divine. It is about how our choices, whether made out of fear, pride, or self-will, can slowly erode the light within us. It's a slow, steady process, and it can be difficult to recognize until we are far from where we once were. But the story of the fall also gives us a hopeful message. The light is not lost forever. While Adam and Eve's eyes grew dim, they were not permanently shut off from the divine. The process of redemption, of returning to the divine light, is always open to us. But it requires awareness, humility, and a willingness to turn back to the divine will. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they experienced spiritual separation. But it wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new path. A path that would take them and us on a journey of learning, growing, and ultimately returning to the Creator. This journey is not linear, and it is not always easy, but it is always available. The story of the fall is not just about the moment of disobedience. It is about the opportunity to choose again, to return to the divine light, to reconnect with the Creator. The key lesson from the fall is the importance of trusting in divine wisdom over self-will. The pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, and power, when separated from divine connection, leads to confusion and division. But when we align our actions with divine wisdom, when we choose to listen to the Creator rather than our own egos, we return to the light. It is through humility and surrender that we can find true wisdom and clarity. And it is through these acts of humility that we can begin the process of healing and restoring our connection with the divine. As we reflect on the story of the fall, let us ask ourselves, are we living in alignment with the divine will, or are we, like Adam and Eve, seeking knowledge and power outside of divine order? Are we willing to humble ourselves, to surrender our will, and to return to the light? The journey of redemption is long and not without its challenges, but it is always available to us. And with each step we take toward the light, we come closer to the divine wisdom that was always meant to guide us. In the wake of Adam and Eve's disobedience, the narrative of the fall takes a turn that stretches beyond a mere act of sin. It's a profound lesson in human nature, spiritual growth, and the journey back to divine connection. The story is not just about what went wrong, but about the incredible potential for recovery, redemption, and healing. The fall wasn't a sudden collapse into darkness. It was the beginning of a long, difficult, but ultimately redemptive journey. The road back to the divine light wasn't lost forever, but it required recognition, humility, and the willingness to restore the connection that had been broken. The first lesson we draw from the fall is the power of choice and its consequences. Adam and Eve were given the gift of free will. This divine gift allowed them to choose, to act in alignment with the Creator's plan, or to step outside of it. Their choice to eat from the tree of knowledge wasn't merely about defying a commandment. It was about choosing autonomy over divine wisdom, personal power over divine guidance. The consequences of that choice were immediate. The clarity that had once been their birthright, the clarity of seeing the world through the Creator's eyes, began to fade. They saw their nakedness, not just physically, but spiritually, feeling shame for the first time. The paradise they once inhabited, where everything was in perfect harmony, was now tainted with fear and separation. This lesson speaks directly to us in the modern world. How often do we choose to act based on our own understanding, seeking control or power, rather than trusting in the wisdom that is always available to us? The fall is a mirror of every time we choose the self-will over divine will, when we act without considering the broader divine harmony. It's easy to get caught up in our desires and the desire to control. But the fall reminds us that every choice we make, no matter how small, can create ripples that affect not only our lives but the world around us. Our choices matter. We are reminded that true freedom lies not in acting according to our own will, but in aligning with the divine will. The second lesson from the fall is the power of awareness and its transformative potential. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they became aware of their nakedness. This awareness wasn't just physical, but deeply spiritual. They realized for the first time that they had separated themselves from the divine harmony that had once embraced them. Their eyes, once filled with divine light, became clouded with shame, and they hid themselves from the Creator. The fall teaches us that awareness is the first step toward healing. When we become aware of the ways we have separated ourselves from our divine essence, when we recognize the choices we have made that have led us away from love, wisdom, and peace, we open the door to healing. In our own lives, it's often the moments of pain, regret, or disillusionment that bring us to the realization of our disconnection. These moments, while difficult, are opportunities for transformation. In the Ethiopian Bible, the Creator calls out to Adam and Eve asking, "Where are you?" This question is not one of accusation, it is an invitation. It's a divine call to awaken, to see ourselves as we truly are and recognize where we have strayed from the divine light within us. Awareness doesn't condemn us, it invites us back to the light. But awareness alone is not enough. The third lesson from the fall is the importance of humility and trust in divine mercy. After Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they tried to hide from the Creator, feeling unworthy and ashamed. It is in these moments of shame that we often find it hardest to return to the light. The Creator, however, did not abandon them. Instead, God sought them out, extending grace and mercy, offering them the chance to heal and restore what was lost. This is the heart of the redemptive process: humility, acknowledging that we are not perfect, that we have fallen, but trusting that the Creator's love is always available to us. Humility isn't about self-criticism or self-loathing. It's about understanding that we are not separate from the Creator, and that no matter how far we've wandered, we can always return. It's the acknowledgement that we don't have to be perfect to be loved, and that healing comes from turning back to the divine with an open heart. This is the invitation extended to Adam and Eve, and it's the invitation that continues to be extended to us today. The story of the fall teaches us that redemption is a process. Adam and Eve's expulsion from the garden wasn't the end. It was the beginning of their journey of growth, learning, and transformation. Similarly, when we fall, when we make mistakes, it is not the end of our story. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one where we can begin to rebuild, to heal, and to rediscover the divine wisdom that was always within us. The fall was not an act of God's punishment, but rather a part of the divine plan that allowed humanity to experience the consequences of its choices, to learn, and to ultimately return to the light. The Ethiopian Bible reveals that redemption is not a single event, but a lifelong journey. It requires awareness, humility, and the willingness to heal. It is through the recognition of our own vulnerabilities and limitations that we can begin to reconnect with the divine wisdom within us. The Creator does not abandon us when we stray. Instead, God offers us the opportunity to grow through our mistakes. Just as Adam and Eve had to leave the garden, we too must sometimes leave the comfort of our former ways of thinking and being in order to grow and transform. Healing begins when we stop hiding in fear and shame and begin to trust in the divine mercy that calls us back. Just as Adam and Eve's return to the Creator was not immediate, our own journey of healing can take time. But every step we take toward that divine light is a step toward reclaiming the divine wisdom we were always meant to embody. This is the power of the fall. It shows us that no matter how lost we may feel, there is always the opportunity for redemption, always the possibility of returning to the light. The final lesson from the fall is the importance of trust. Trusting that the divine wisdom that was given to us in the beginning is still within us. Trusting that the light that was dimmed can be rekindled. Trusting that we are capable of returning to our true essence, not through our own efforts, but through divine grace. The fall reminds us that we are not meant to be perfect. We are meant to learn, grow, and return to the light again and again. Each time we stumble, we are invited to rise and begin again. The fall is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of our spiritual journey. It teaches us the importance of making conscious choices, becoming aware of the ways we have strayed from the divine path, and trusting in divine mercy as we walk our path of redemption. Healing is not about perfection, but about returning to the divine light, one step at a time. And as we return, we reclaim our true nature and remember the divine wisdom that has always been within us, waiting to guide us home. As we come to the end of this exploration into the divine mysteries shared through the Ethiopian Bible, I want to take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered together. The journey through the story of Adam and Eve is more than just a tale from ancient texts. It is a mirror of our own spiritual journey. It speaks to the very core of our existence, showing us that just like our first parents, we too face choices that shape our path. And these choices can either lead us into light or darkness. But even in the midst of the darkest moments, there is always hope. There is always a way back to the divine, a way to rediscover the light that has never left us. As we've seen, the fall wasn't just an event in time. It is a living, breathing part of the human experience. We all face moments when we stray from the divine path, moments when we choose self-will over divine wisdom. We all have times when we feel the weight of our mistakes, the shame of separation, and the confusion that comes when we lose sight of our true essence. But the story doesn't end there. The fall is not the end of our journey. It's the beginning of something much greater. The path of redemption, of returning to the divine light, is always open to us, no matter how far we may have strayed. What we've learned today is that the divine wisdom within us, just like the light in Adam and Eve, is never truly lost. It may dim at times, but it is always there, waiting for us to recognize it, to reconnect with it, and to let it guide us back to the divine harmony we were created to live in. The divine spark is within us all, and it calls us back to peace, to love, and to understanding. This is the heart of the Ethiopian Bible's message. No matter how far we fall, we are never beyond redemption. The divine light always awaits our return. I share this with you not just as a reflection on ancient stories, but as a living truth. You are a part of this divine journey. The same divine light that was present in Eden is present in you now, calling you to awaken to your true nature, to step into your purpose, and to live in alignment with the Creator's plan. The story of Adam and Eve is a story of all of us. It is about the choices we make, the consequences of those choices, and the opportunity for redemption and healing that is always available to us. If you have found value in this video, if it has touched your soul and helped you find a glimmer of light in the midst of your own darkness, I invite you to share your support. Every like, every comment, and every subscription is a reflection of the energy we share in this space. Your engagement is more than just a number to me. It is a reminder that this journey is not taken alone. It is a shared path, and your presence here means the world. As we continue to explore the divine wisdom of the Ethiopian Bible, I ask for your support in keeping this light shining. If this video has spoken to your heart, if you feel that these teachings are helping you reconnect with the divine truth within you, please consider showing your support in whatever way you feel led. Whether it's through a like, a comment, or subscribing to this channel, your support enables me to continue creating these videos and sharing this sacred knowledge with the world. Every gesture, no matter how small, is a gift that helps to keep this work alive. If you have questions, thoughts, or insights that you'd like to share, I encourage you to comment below. Let's keep the conversation going, sharing our thoughts, our experiences, and the light that we are rediscovering together. Every comment, every shared experience helps to build a community of like-minded souls seeking truth, healing, and divine wisdom. As we move forward, remember that the path of redemption is not about perfection. It's about the willingness to return, the courage to face our own darkness, and the faith that the divine light will always lead us back to peace. You are never too far from the divine light. It is within you, waiting for you to awaken to it. The journey may be long, and it may be difficult, but the promise of redemption is always with us. It's a promise of healing, of wholeness, and of love. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being part of this journey. Your presence here, your support, your willingness to explore these divine teachings is a gift. I look forward to continuing to walk this path with you, to uncovering more divine wisdom, and to shining the light of truth in a world that so desperately needs it. May you always walk in the divine light, and may that light guide you home